Hey y'all, it's your friendly neighborhood advisor here, Alexander Quinn, and today I'm going to be telling you about how to prevent the 3 most common money mistakes that I hear people come to me with. Tip number 1 is going to be about budgeting. It's kind of a no-brainer, but I want to simplify the process. Usually the reason people don't do it is because the process is just boring, it's arduous, it seems like a bigger task than it really is, and I want to challenge you to just put aside 5 minutes to just go and get it done. Just do it like quick and dirty, the quickest, easiest you can do it possible. In fact, just guess at the numbers if you need to, but start with what you think your income is and what you think your expenses are, and then just kind of gauge that out and say, okay, and so then your estimated savings based on that. Just start with that, and then usually once we put down something, then we have this urge to correct it, so then you're going to want to go and check out some more realistic numbers. So you might want to pull your W-2s, and then if you get paid bi-weekly, just double that. There is about 4.5 or 4, and I think it's 4 and then 2.3 days in a month on average, something like that. But anyway, point is, it's about half or a third of a week in a month on average, which you could add in, but honestly, a lower income is better to put. It's called accounting numbers, at least that's what I hear it called most commonly, but it's where you kind of plan for a little bit of a worst case scenario to be more consistent, because if you come out with more money, that's never a bad thing. If you come out with less, that's always a bad thing. So it's usually you make it or you don't. Anyway, so you can figure out your income, but most people usually know what their income is. Figure out your expenses really quickly. You want to open up your bank app, whatever it is, look at your last 5 bank statements and take the median, take the middle number, just to make it quick and dirty and easy, because you can't have the right number even if you had all the information. It just doesn't work that way. And then you just take that number, here's what your expenses are. You don't need to put down the different categories, just plain and simple put income and expenses. And then when it comes time for you to determine where your money goes, once you get paid, you want to pay yourself first, because let's say you've got $500 and your rent's $1,000. If you pay that $500, then it's still not enough. You still get kicked out, and now you're homeless with no money. But if you pay yourself first and you have $500 in savings, then not paying that, you get kicked out, you get the eviction, but you have $500 for you and any family you may have to go and have options to find a place or to try to get by. If you lose your job, you want to have some money left over on the side. Savings is actually more important than paying your current common things that you have going on. It's super critical. So you want to budget first, and when you budget, try to budget saving, at least $10 a month if you're not already, and then increase that by $10 a month each month and save $10 more until you get to the point that you're at. But the number can be higher, but make sure whatever it is, you will feel ridiculous if you don't save that amount. Like, oh, there's no reason why I can't just find $10, something like that. Just get yourself going. So you want to budget, you want to know where you're at, because then you can figure out, do I need to make more or spend less? And that gets you knowing what direction to go. And those are the 2 numbers that you really move, is if you're spending less or saving more. So that gets you on the right track, and it shows you what you can afford as well. So then if you're looking for a place, you need to know how much you need to cut back or how much you can afford. You can see, okay, well, for me to meet my savings goals, I need the place to be this much, and that way you only take on what you can afford. A lot of people take on, the most common problem I see is people take on more than they can afford, and it's because they don't know what they can afford. When I look at the numbers, I'm just like, why are you looking for a place that's cost $200 more a month when you have no savings and you spend all your money? And so to fix that, if you have a budget, you know what your numbers are, then it causes you to make smarter decisions. And if you notice that you actually can't save the amount that you're trying to save, then that tells you need to earn more or spend less. And just having the budget numbers on paper kind of brings a reality to your senses as well. It just makes it more real. And over time, we tend to improve this process on our own, and people do tend to fine tune it a bit. But it's just getting started that is the real issue. People are typically smart, and we're good at finding the right answers. But the problem is we're not really asking the right questions. You can't actually pinpoint exactly where you're at, even if you had all the information in most cases. And just getting started is the main issue. It's not actually having a budget that's accurate. Having a budget at all is the main thing, because even if you could get the right answer, if you don't get started, you'll never get there. So starting a budget is the main thing, the main most common mistake that I see people making. And then when you pay yourself first, you pay your savings first, and then whatever's left, you pay your bills, and anything after that, just splurge on yourself. And what's funny is when people give themselves permission to splurge in this way, they usually don't. They actually spend less moving forward than before when they were trying not to spend. And they saw money in the accounts and they were living paycheck to paycheck. So that's my first tip that I have for you guys that can help kind of hack your habits into making it so that you have a more financially free lifestyle. All right, so on to tip number 2 is to not be dependent on your paycheck. All right, everyone already knows this, but here is how to prevent that. So the budgeting tip will definitely help with that, but ways that you can handle that if you're not ready for that yet, or if you want just some other alternatives, some other methods, is you need to, I think the mentality, the way that I phrase it works pretty well when I tell people not to be dependent on their paychecks. It kind of wakes them up and makes them realize that paycheck to paycheck usually is a phrase that people associate with their status. Like, here's where I am, paycheck to paycheck, and they think that's normal, that's how everyone is, etc. I'm trying for this, I don't know if I'll ever achieve it, etc. And that's kind of the mindset people tend to have. I think that the mindset should be, are you dependent on your paycheck? And dependent means that if anything goes wrong with that you're done, you're doomed, you're screwed, and you can't recover. So when you think of it in that perspective, also realize that random occurrences happen in life. We do go times without a job, whether it be that we quit, we leave, they fire us, misunderstandings happen, etc. But we have all types of mishaps that happen. Also, the car breaks down. For me, I have to get my car fixed once a year. If I don't, it usually breaks down on me and makes me fix it once a year. So either way, once a year I have to put in at least $1,000 into it. And so when that happens, if I'm dependent on that paycheck and that paycheck goes over there, the thing I'm dependent on does not exist. It's not there. I don't have enough. So how do you handle that? So the way to prevent this is first just be aware that you are dependent on it, whether or not you're dependent on it, how much you can save. Knowing how dependent you are on your paycheck is the first step. And once you realize that, then try to figure out how to get not dependent on it. So if you don't want to budget, then just try to figure out how you can set aside a little bit of money here and there. Maybe just out of each paycheck, just be like, you know what, I'm going to put $10 out of my paycheck, because getting started somewhere is going to be kind of the main key here to get things rolling. Once you start doing that, you actually naturally get in the mindset of thinking, well, you start getting anxious and nervous. You're like, well, I mean, that's not enough. Once you start doing it, you're like, I need to save more. And then you feel compelled to do it. Whereas typically people, when they start out, when they come to me, they actually feel the opposite. They feel compelled not to. They're trying to, but their habits are fighting them. Or they make a savings, but they reach into it and they grab it. But if you actually put it low, you make it underperform, then we feel the need to fix that, to correct it. We feel the anxiety. And you want the anxiety. It's basically balancing your anxiety and your boredom. It's boring trying to save up, but it's anxiety-inducing not having enough, especially if you have something there. If you have nothing there, there's not even a system to be bored or anxious about. You're actually just anxious about starting. But if you make it so that the side that you're on, it's anxiety-inducing not to make movement, not to create momentum, not to create inertia, if it's just bugging at you, you're going to end up going and fixing it. All right. So finally, tip number 3 is, or I guess the most common mistake that I want to help people prevent, is having only one source of income. So how do you prevent this? How do you fix this? There's lots of avenues, but I think I want to approach the people that have the most difficult time with this, because I think for people who have an easier time, they probably don't need these tips and advice, but you want to have always 2 forms of income. Something that I learned a while ago when I actually was struggling. I was jobless and homeless for a bit, and then I picked up a couple of minimum wage jobs back when minimum wage was $7.25. So my take home was about $5 an hour. Anyway, what I learned from that was when I was there, I got 2 jobs, and it's kind of interesting how it worked out, because when one boss loved me, the other one hated me. When one boss loved me, the other one hated me, and the bosses kept changing. At one job, the boss kept changing over, and at the other job, the boss stayed the same. So it was just really kind of funny how it worked out. And I ended up getting 40 hours a week from one job and only 8 hours a week from the other for months. At the same time that this job brought me down to 8 hours a week, this job brought me up to 40 hours a week. So I just constantly had 48 hours a week in pay. And it's because I had 2 forms of income. And I think that people should always have 2 forms, because typically everyone wants to, for different reasons. If you are just if you're just skating by, then you want it to have more security. You don't want to be stuck in a job that you don't like. If the boss changes over, you don't want to be just stuck with that. You want to have options. You want to always be looking. Also, it's easier to get higher paying jobs when you already have a job. The best jobs I see people get with the highest pay are usually because they already have one. So it's just better, it's easier, and people tend to be healthier for it and have better jobs afterwards because of it. And also, people that are doing well typically are interested in investing, moving further, and exploring other opportunities, even if it's passive. I recommend either way that you have 2 forms of income, because everyone just ends up leading to everyone needing it. If you're in the later half of what I mentioned, where you are probably looking at investing, even if it's having passive income where you don't have to do any work, you want to get some experience doing that, some experience in that field. So start up something, whether it be checking out stocks, checking out some real estate, investing in an REIT, whatever the case may be. Just find something to do, make it an interest, make it a hobby, make it whatever, explore something, or just keep your options open at least. At least be looking for something better, even if you think you have the best job. Anyway, I hope this helps someone out there. You all take care and have a wonderful day.